Welcome to the Big Play Cleveland Show. I'm Gabriella Cruz alongside Chris McNeil, Nick Padone. We're coming off a huge Rock and Blast weekend at Progressive Field. Yeah. Guys, I'm dragging just slightly. It was a lot of hours, a lot of fireworks, and honestly a lot of fun to end on Sunday's high note. And then we've got the Royals this week, so hoping to lock it in.
A lot of Royals.
Also, your Columbus Crew, Chris.
Yes.
League Cup champs.
Yeah, it's been 8 months since our last championship down in Columbus, so it was nice to finally get another one off the list. The Haslams right now building a little bit of a dynasty down there in Columbus. Hopefully we can bring a little bit of that magic up here to Cleveland as well with our Brownies. But congratulations to the Columbus Crew. Cucho Hernandez continues to just dominate down there, Nick.
Yeah, it's crazy what happens in the MLS, which is just a funny league in its own right. But then you get some of these superstar players from defunct leagues elsewhere, like Cucho Hernandez, and you put him against these guys that are American soccer players, and Cucho Hernandez is like a video game character out there. So shout out to the Crew. It was another fun championship win to be a part of right down there in Columbus at home. It was cool.
Speaking of Columbus, Ohio State football, week 1 versus Akron. Chris, what is the spread looking like?
Spread looks like 49 and a hook. You got 49.5 for the Buckeyes. Do you think they're going to have any problems come Saturday, Nick?
We were talking about this before the show, opening up against Akron, 49.5. That's a ton of points. You know I usually like to stay away when it's that many points. But I feel like week 1, Ohio State season, there's so much hype around these Buckeyes. People are saying that this is the best roster on paper in the last decade. Chris, out the gate, I might have to take them beating Akron by 50 or more just to say that I did and just to be on the right side of history in the event that they could cover that many points.
Well, Ohio State's got like 5 quarterbacks. They'll start with Will Howard. I bet we see just about all of them come Saturday. It'll be a fun day to kind of open and get into the season for the Buckeyes.
Chris, I like your hat too, by the way. We are just 1 week out from the Big Play golf tournament, our first ever golf tournament.
August 31st, Little Mountain. It's going to be cool. A lot of the Big Play Crew going to be there. The Cribs, Hanford Dixon, everybody at this desk right here. Chris, it's going to be a lot of fun. I know you're looking forward to it. Everybody that golfs in it is getting that hat. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Also a little cooler that I saw that's also really neat. So it's going to be fun up there at Little Mountain. Looking forward to it.
If you haven't got your foursome yet, there might be a couple available. By the time you're seeing this, there might be, there might not be. Go to bigplay.com. That's to check and see if tickets are still available. Come golf with us at bigplay.com.
We'll take a short break and we'll be back with our featured interview, Bruce Drennan, right after this. Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show. We have got our Garage Beer featured interview and co-worker here in studio, Bruce Drennan. There's so much we could ask you about because of your long career in sports talk, and we'll get to that. But I'm a little hot off the guards, and I see your C shirt right now.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we string 2 together, 6 home runs over the weekend. How you feeling?
Well, I'm feeling sad because I can't make the golf outing, quite frankly. I was previously committed to the late, great Joe Tate, his fundraiser, and they're going to have me. Will you shut up? Trying to do an interview here, and you keep interrupting. But I was committed to it. I'm hitting a drive for each team, and so I was disappointed I couldn't make it at Little Mountain. As far as the Guardians, I mean, this is a real critical time of the year, obviously, Gab, because they've got Kansas City and then Minnesota, who now we've opened up as we speak a 3-game gap against the 2 of them. They're tied for second. I love what they did prior to the break, the deadline, and getting both Boyd and Cobb. Cobb's a little hurt right now, but and I think Thomas is going to come around. The bullpen's the best in baseball, which is the real positive. All you have to do is get that game into the 5th, 6th inning, and of course, they have hit more home runs than I think any of us could have expected. So that has been a pleasant surprise. They've been a good clutch hitting team, even the bottom of the order, where the guys don't have great batting averages, but one day it's this guy, the next day it's another one, and they're coming through in the clutch, and that's healthy. Let's hope they can carry on.
John Kenzie Noel, he's got to stay in the lineup, right, until he stops hitting home runs.
Yeah, he's got scary power, doesn't he? I mean, I like what I see. He's got to cut down on the strikeouts, be a little more selective. But, yeah, an uncanny power, which is refreshing considering we've been seeking that here with the Indians, now Guardians, for a long time.
Yeah, not only that, but a great nickname as well. Big
Christmas.
Gotta love that, right?
Yeah, he even a mistake, a check swing, he supplies so much power with the speed the pitcher is providing. He's fun to watch, and I hope and pray that he can do nothing but get better.
I think he really gives a spark to the team too, though, because if you're that 13-5 game we had, it was really his 3-run shot in the third that just blew the lid off the offense. There was something that excited the entire, everybody's jazz and just in awe of this power and spark he brings.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. Even the camera at times. I don't know if you saw, Chris. I know we like having fun with the broadcast stuff, but he hit a foul ball, and the camera just went right up into the sky. I was like, did he hit it that high up there? It's in the clouds.
Just assuming it's gone right off.
Yeah. Bruce, we obviously, too, want to talk a little bit about your career. You've been in the sports talk game for a very long time. Do you have, a take that you've had that has kind of aged to be something that you were on from the jump and you've absolutely nailed it? And then on the inverse, do you have something that you felt really strongly about and you regret saying it?
Oh gosh, where do I start with that? My goodness. As far as callers, I mean, I actually think Gab was with me when one of the most bizarre calls I ever received on the air. I was on the network doing the show, and Derek Jeter had announced this was going to be his last year. So as he was touring the country with the Yankees, they were giving celebrations to his career and his great accomplishments and all from city to city. And it was about halfway through the season, and this idiot called me up and said, what do you think it'll take for us to make a trade to get Derek Jeter? And I leaned forward and looked into the camera, and I said, would you please repeat that? And indeed, I said, I thought that's what you said. And, when did they let him out? I mean, it's the question, the padded rooms and all. I mean, Derek Jeter, unbelievable. There was so many, though. I remember we played the first game of the season. It was opening day. And another idiot called up, and the Indians lost. And another idiot called up, and he just trashed. Same old story. They stink. Dolan doesn't pay any money. They're never going to do this. They're never going to do that. And I said, after one game, you're going to make that statement. So I went insane on him. That went viral.
Very viral.
Very viral.
I'm getting calls from radio stations all over the country wanting to do an interview with me.
Did you do
Seattle, Miami. Yeah, I did them all. And but I didn't realize it would have that kind of reaction. So there's been so many over the years, but my goodness.
Bruce, I know we've talked about it, but I don't know if I've brought it on the air before. But to your point, I was answering Bruce's calls while I was still in school. It was just a little internship gig. And I remember, I just was so quiet and behind the scenes, and I would just observe Bruce in his element and how animated he became. And I was the one who would screen the calls. So when I would put a caller through and I'd watch him go absolutely nuts on somebody, I used to think, oh, I'm getting fired. I can't believe I just let this person through. He's going to kill me after this. And then every show, he'd just come over, the sweetest guy. How you doing, honey? Thanks so much. I'll see you tomorrow. And I was just like, oh, wow. Phew, I live to see another day, because that was just part of your personality and bringing all of that to life. And it was certainly entertaining. That's why so many things went viral.
Those were fun times with you when you were just breaking into the business. And gosh, congratulations on your career accomplishing so much at still such a young age. But I swear, I would always tell the screeners, I say, if you think that is the looniest tune caller you've ever encountered in your life, let them through. It's called show business. Let them through. Let them on with me. Those are always the most entertaining.
Yeah, people don't realize that. I think a lot of young people and the young people that we work with here, that's how you get your start here. Gab, that's how you started. That's how I started, just answering phones, ESPN Cleveland, this is Nick. What's your name? Where are you calling from? And then teeing you guys up to, rip into people and to have those viral moments and takes that people remember for a long time. It's really cool. Bruce, how about the coolest athlete or coach that you've had the opportunity to cover during your time in Cleveland?
Oh, gosh, so many coaches. You know, everybody used to say Marty Schottenheimer was a tough interview. I didn't find that to be the case at all, Nick. He always never turned me down for an interview, always gave 35 to 45-minute press conferences for us. I thought he was great. Sam, of course, preceded him, and he was Mr. Personality, the quick wit and all. But Marty, they said, was stoic, but I thought Marty was very, very accommodating, not only to me, but to the media in general. Managers of all the Indians teams throughout the years. I remember the first one when I came to Cleveland in '78 was Jeff Torborg, of all people, who, of course, used to be the special catcher for Sandy Koufax of the Dodgers. Indeed, all those coaches. Bill Fitch, when I came to Cleveland, was the coach of the Cavaliers. Great guy. Of course, I mentioned Joe Tate earlier. That's who was responsible for bringing Joe Tate to Cleveland, is Bill Fitch. But as far as players, currently, I just played golf the other day with Mike Hargrove. Of course, I'm going to be playing in the Guardians charity outing this coming Thursday out at Quail Hollow, and I just played with Grover. Manning will be there, or Lenny Barker, all of those guys. I became very close with Robbie Alomar. He was not close with members of the media.
At all, famously.
But he was with me, and actually his mother was visiting from Puerto Rico, and the Indians had a day game. It was a Saturday, and Robbie and his mom, and he was going with Mary Pierce at the time. She was the defending French Open champion in tennis. And she came with Robbie out to our house. And, so I became very, very close with him. And I remember my wife, people don't even realize how religious he was. My wife gave him a rosary once for a present. I delivered it down in the clubhouse to him, and he was in tears. I mean, so there was a side of Robbie that people had no idea about. And as far as a student of the game, there was no bigger than Robbie Alomar. Just a tremendous intellect when it came to baseball. And I think all-around ability, the greatest second baseman that ever lived.
Wow. Alrighty, we got to get Bruce's thoughts on the Browns. Don't go anywhere. More of the Big Play Cleveland Show right after this.
Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show. We are joined by our coworker and Cleveland sports talk legend, Bruce Drennan. Before we get into everything Browns, Bruce, real quick, there isn't one dominant team in Major League Baseball that really stands out. If you had to pick today, what's your World Series matchup?
You mean for this season?
For this season.
Well, obviously, if it's not the Guardians, and we're all pulling for them, of course, and they're such an old-fashioned National League style team too, which is kind of interesting and fun. They're a fun team to watch. But Baltimore's a fascinating team too. Houston, same old, same old. I'm not surprised that they have overtaken Seattle and everybody. I told you to shut up. That phone. What am I going to do with it? Yeah. Anyway. Certainly, the Yankees, been there, done that. I think Baltimore's kind of intriguing. In the National League, Philadelphia seems to be destined, but I wouldn't take anything for granted. Look at last year. Texas and Arizona were the teams that got hot at the right time, entering the playoffs, and they wind up against one another in the World Series. So you never know. 97 is a perfect example of that when the Indians faced Florida. I think we finished like 11. You'd have to check this. I think it was like 11 games above 500 is all. But we got hot early in August and carried that into the playoffs. And now that these playoffs have been expanded, that seems to be the key. It's not necessarily the team with the best record in the National League against the best record in the American League it used to be for decades. But now the team that gets hot at the right time carries that momentum into the postseason.
Staying on baseball, everybody in Cleveland claims they were at Len Barker's perfect game, right? You actually called it with Joe Tate, right? Tell us about that experience.
Well, as we know, it was a very cold, chilly night, kind of rainy. It was off and on, and hundreds of thousands of people claimed that they were there that night. It was a very sparse crowd, and I have my scorebook. My wife framed my scorebook open to the pages of that game, and it's framed in my office at home. And the bottom of the 8th and the top of the 9th are missing. And the reason is because at the end of the top of the 8th inning, the director got in my ear and said, go down to the dugout. We have the microphone ready with extension cords. There were no wireless mics back then. And so they had it all set for me, and so they sent me down to the dugout in case he did get the no-hitter or the perfect game, as inevitably he did, and to interview him. And so I kept the bottom of the 8th and the top of the 9th blank because I knew it would be, after it was all over, I knew it would be a talking piece to this day, which it is. But, he didn't even have a strikeout, I don't think, until the 4th inning. A lot of people don't realize he didn't throw anything but curveballs from the 6th inning on. It was such a devastating pitch. He was, to this day, said he was going to make them prove that they could hit that curveball, which obviously they could not. And I'll never forget when I came out of the dugout when he got the perfect game, and I had a producer behind me watching the wires so they didn't disconnect. And I got out to Lenny, and he came to me right away, and so I was the first one to interview him. And there was a guy with one of these old-fashioned cassette recorders that was sticking it in my puss. And I gave him such an NBA elbow that I'm sure he's still bruised by it. But, it was a great life-lasting experience.
That's awesome. All right, we got to flip over to the Browns. How you feeling about this Brown season? It feels like everybody that we talk to, Bruce, on this show, on our network, really it just boils down to Deshaun Watson and what does he turn into this year? Can he shake the injury? Does he return to form? What are your thoughts on all that?
Well, I think he's a tremendously gifted athlete. We all know about his God-given talent. The question is, does he have it here in his heart? We don't know that yet. We shall see. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt because I believe that the competitiveness in him is going to want to prove that he is worth this enormous contract that Haslam gave him, and that he is indeed a championship quarterback. They have surrounded him with the proper tools to accomplish that. I think the Browns are loaded enough to go a long, long way. The problem are the obstacles. The obstacles are very, very evident. Yeah. We're in the toughest division in the NFL. Burrow's back with Cincinnati. Baltimore's going to play with a chip on their shoulders after being humiliated at home by Kansas City. And Pittsburgh was making the playoffs with no quarterbacks. Now they've got 2. So there's that. Now you also have Kansas City in this conference. If you're going to get to the Super Bowl, you got to go through KC. I think LA is going to be very improved with Harbaugh now, especially with a quarterback like Herbert. And then you have Miami and Buffalo in the East. Who knows what Rodgers is going to do with the Jets? That could go one way or the other. I think Trevor Lawrence has really got pressure on him to prove the honeymoon is over down there in Jacksonville. So he's got something to prove. Houston with Stroud, look at them. Yeah. So if you compare the AFC to the NFC, okay, you've got Frisco, maybe Philadelphia. I don't even think Dallas should be considered in that category because they've been an underachieving team. So the obstacles for the Browns are very obvious, but I'm high on them, and I'm giving Watson and the team the benefit of the doubt. Now, if they go south, don't miss my show.
Yeah, don't miss the show. And you could watch the show on the Big Play app. Make sure you download it. It's on iOS, Roku, and Apple TV right now. Search in the App Store, Big Play, all one word, and you could watch Bonus Time with Bruce Drennan right here on the Big Play Network. You'd also just watch it on the Big Play YouTube as well.
Bruce, you did mention how tough the AFC North is. Do you have a prediction for where you see these teams in what order finishing?
Should I let the cat out of the bag, Ryan? I'm supposed to do my predictions in our next show. But I'm going to give, I think our division is so difficult to choose, Gab. You could take any of the 4 teams and legitimately make a case. So I'll take the Browns to be the homer that I am and show that I am indeed giving them the benefit of the doubt. And I'm not just doing it because we're Cleveland and all, but you can make a legitimate case for Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and Baltimore, and certainly Cleveland. So I'll give the benefit of the doubt there to the Browns. And take. I just think it's so difficult to predict this division. I really do. By far the toughest division to predict of any of them in the National Football League.
Any thoughts on Ohio State this season? Obviously loaded. Ryan Day, how hot is his seat right now?
Well, I don't see how hot. You
got to beat Michigan, right, Bruce?
No.
You don't have to beat Michigan.
You know why not, Chris? Picture this scenario. We lose one game or we're undefeated when we play Michigan and we lose. We're still in the tournament.
Right.
Yeah.
So what if we lose to Michigan and Day leads Ohio State to the national championship, whether he wins or loses? How do you fire him?
I could see
How do you
That's a
fire him?
caveat. That's a caveat, a big caveat.
So I don't necessarily believe that he's on the hot seat. They're absolutely loaded on paper. Yeah. Georgia's number 1, legitimately. Nobody can convince me that they weren't one of the top 4 teams in the country last year. Maybe Michigan wouldn't have won the national championship had they gotten into that Final Four, just because they lost to Alabama in the SEC championship game. But I think Ohio State is absolutely loaded. You know what the biggest embarrassment's going to be, in my opinion, now that they've realigned all these conferences and we've got UCLA, USC, Oregon, and Washington in the Big Ten.
18 teams.
What if Oregon wins the Big Ten? What does that say for the rest of the Big Ten?
Yeah.
I mean, the Big Ten is much maligned anyway by the national pundits.
Sure.
So that would just give them so much fuel. It's outrageous, the ammunition that they would have to trash the Big Ten. And I think legitimately. So they better not, the Big Ten old standbys better not let, and Oregon's loaded. They're not going to miss Knicks at all. So that would be something to behold. And, of course, Ohio State's got a big game against them early on.
Yeah.
By the way, I heard you guys talking about Akron. 49.5, you said, Chris?
Yeah. Quite the spread.
Look at it this way. All Akron has to do is score once or one touchdown at the end of the game, a slop touchdown or a field goal. Now all of a sudden it's 60 points. You see? So not that Ohio State
like
can't
a man
cover.
from experience here, Bruce, on this topic.
Not that they can't cover, but
doesn't take much.
I don't think they necessarily would or will cover or need to cover. It's a matter of getting guys experience, getting their feet wet with the start of the season.
All right, I think Bruce is on the Zips.
Well, I just think that's an ungodly number.
Yeah,
that's and especially huge. Early, especially 50. The first game.
50.
I mean, first game. Yeah, is Day gonna want to beat Akron by 60 points? I mean,
that is crazy. Make sure you guys tune into Bonus Time with Bruce Drennan. It seriously is one of the most fun shows that we have. Ryan, who produces this show, is Bruce's producer. They've got a lot of fun every single week. Make sure to tune into them. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Big Play Cleveland Show. We're bringing the heat with Jensen Lewis right after this. Welcome on back into the Big Play Cleveland Show. It's time for Bringing the Heat with Jensen Lewis. And Bringing the Heat is brought to you by our friends at Northeast Factory Direct. Our friends at Northeast Factory have a fantastic wide range of mattresses. Our Guardians offense has maybe woken up a little bit, Gab, from their sleep on their Northeast Factory Direct mattresses. So whether you're into the plush feel of a pillow top, the cooling comfort of a gel foam, the support of memory foam, or the classic bounce of an inner spring, they truly have it all at Northeast Factory Direct. If you haven't gone and checked them out yet, go to Northeast Factory Direct. It's unlike any other furniture store. They're not hounding you area. It's an awesome experience. You could shop online anytime by going to northeastfactorydirect.com, but visit them in store in Cleveland, Euclid, Macedonia, North Canton, and make sure to ask for that big play bonus. You're going to be glad that you did. We got to bring in Jensen Lewis. It's time to bring the heat because Jensen, John Kenzie Noel has brought the heat. He's starting more games. You know I'm excited about that. Can he become an everyday player? It feels like that's become a little bit more of a serious question to ask now.
Yeah, Nick, and it almost feels like a necessity, right? With seeing where the struggles have been the last 3 to 4 weeks, or just where the inconsistencies lie for the bottom of this lineup in certain stretches. So, yeah, to see what he's able to do with one swing of the bat, I know we've talked about it for weeks now, that perhaps he is that instantaneous power that they've been looking for internally to help lengthen this lineup behind David Fry and Josh Naylor and however the rest that Stephen Vogt wants to fill out the lineup. Interested to see now with this upcoming stretch of 7 to 10 days, and obviously the 4 games in 3 days against Kansas City in this homestand, and then going right back to Kansas City to finish the season series. When pitchers see you with regularity, they've got a better opportunity to maybe adjust on the fly. And so that game of chess, right, to see where, A, do they pitch John Kenzie Noel if he does early damage? B, if it's run-scoring situations, does he get that early respect of, okay, we know what damage he can do. We're going to try and maybe pitch around him a little bit to perhaps an Austin Hedges, a Bo Naylor, a Brian Rocchio, whoever's in those bottom 2 spots. And then ultimately the question down the line is, once the weather gets a little colder, does he stay hot? Is he able to still hit through what we know are October conditions here in postseason baseball? So right now, just keep doing what he's doing. A ridiculously hot pace in the power department as far as home runs go to start his major league career.
One of the guys, Jensen, we've been waiting for all season has been Matthew Boyd. He's come in. He's been pitching well, 2.7 ERA as of right now. What are you seeing out of him, and what do you expect him to do the remainder of this season?
Chris, he's turning back the clock, isn't he? It's not the high velo that we're used to seeing 4 or 5 years ago when he was with Detroit, but he's given me like a little impetus to want to come back. I told you guys last week, I might have to reprise myself as an opener here from time to time, but I think the 2 things that stand out, and it's something that we alluded to as we found out when he was going to end up joining this major league rotation, was could he get length in each of these starts, and could he keep his team in the game? I think he's answered that question, at least first and foremost, of can he get some length? Because, 5-6 innings so far and really being consistent second and third time through the order, that's a really encouraging sign regardless of what offense he's faced thus far. And secondly, each start that he's had, this team has had an opportunity to win the game. And that's all you ask every 5th day. But I'm so impressed, man. What he's been able to do, and really I'm sure an emotional time, because you're trying to center not only handling the emotional part of being back in the big league mound, but then going out and doing your job. He's been masterful thus far and already a massive boost to this rotation.
Do we have any manicurists up there with the Guardians? How's Alex Cobb doing with that fingernail?
One of those freak injuries, right? I can't even put it in. You guys remember back Joel Zamaya, who used to close for the Detroit Tigers, and he had the old Guitar Hero injury with the elbow. How does that happen? How much Guitar Hero you got to be playing? But this is honest, just an unfortunate thing for Alex Cobb, and the way that he grips that breaking ball, of course, would be extremely painful. So we're hoping, again, fingers crossed, it's only 2 starts that he ends up missing, because I think we saw a little vintage Alex Cobb his last time out with the late movement, the ability to miss the big part of the plate. And I think that's huge with what we've seen Matthew Boyd already do, knowing that length is a priority here down the stretch of the season. I think if he's able to get back and kind of pick up where he left off, we'll be in good shape.
Okay, Jensen, the Guardians play the Royals 7 times in the next 10 days. Is there an advantage to playing the same team so much in a short amount of time like that?
I think at this point of the season, Gab, it might be from the standpoint that you get this early part of it at home, at least in the beginning part of this week, and really the Guardians will have an understanding of what they need to do when they go on the road. They also are pretty solid at being able to make the in-game adjustment. What I'm fascinated to watch, not only for the series, this homestand, but also next week, is are there certain parts of Kansas City's game that Cleveland is able to exploit? And a lot of that is probably predicated on how deep Kansas City starters can get in the game, because there's no question that Cleveland's bullpen is far deeper than what Kansas City can run out there. Kansas City has done what we've done in years past. Great top-end starting pitching, guys getting deep into ball games, and it's really protected the underbelly of their bullpen. Anxious to see if the Guardians are able to put up crooked numbers, are able to force Kansas City to their bullpen early, if that changes attack against those hitters at home. Because if you look at the underlying numbers, guys, Kansas City is a boatload better at home. For whatever reason, this year, the numbers are pretty stark. On the road, they've really struggled. But if they find a way to split this series, or if they find a way to get within a game or two of first place, I think Cleveland's got to really have a sense of urgency, getting early leads, forcing Matt Quatraro, the Royals manager, and that coaching staff to make that decision to go to their bullpen early.
Jensen, around baseball, rosters are expanding September 1st. Any prospects that Guardians fans should be watching out for to get the call up to the big club here in the month of September?
Obviously, Nick, the pitching side makes a lot of sense, just again to protect against the starting rotation. Whether it's Logan Allen, staying up or coming back up as a length bullpen arm. If Joey Cantillo finds his spot into a bullpen role, or perhaps back in the rotation, I think a lot of that predicated off of the health of Alex Cobb coming back, and obviously where the rest of the rotation is to that point. If Carlos Carrasco ends up, getting to the point where he can come off the IL, perhaps that's a pitching staff reinforcement that they look at. So I think, again, this is going to probably come down to where they are in the standings and the pitch usage as far as starters and bullpen guys through the rest of this homestand. I think we'll have a pretty good idea probably once you get into that second or third game of the Pittsburgh series, where they want to go. And obviously I know September 1st comes this weekend, but I think more so they want to know from a turn through this rotation, because of the 4 games and 3 days with the Royals, ultimately where their pitch usage is at that point.
For sure. Jensen, before we get you out of here, we have our direct question of the week presented by Northeast Factory Direct. There are about 30 games left. What order will Cleveland, Minnesota, and Kansas City finish if you had to make that prediction today?
Fingers crossed, guys. Of course, we want us in first. I'm going to go with the Minnesota Twins in second, and I'll go with Kansas City in third. That's prisoner of the moment here today as we start, Monday on this week. If Kansas City finds a way to win this series, then I find them in second place, just because I think they'll be a little bit deeper in the rotation. So all that predicated. Ask me this. Maybe we'll do a 2-for-1 next week with a direct question of the week. I'll give you a 2-for-1 answer on the division finish.
How about a 2-for-1 this week? Jensen, any chance Vanderbilt is able to pull off an upset and beat Virginia Tech this week?
Hey, don't sleep on the Doors. 11 a.m. kick local time at the revamped and the renovated Vanderbilt Stadium. I mean, I think the Hokies are going to be pretty good. I think Kyron Drones might have himself a day. I don't know if my Doors defense is enough to kind of hold him down. Now, Alcorn State, Georgia State after that, I think we're 2-1. So, yeah, Vandy at home to cover. They may not win, but book it. They'll cover it.
All right, Vandy at home to cover. We're stacking us up here in nice bet slip. Jensen, Bruce likes the Zips this weekend against Ohio State. Covering
49 and a half is what Ohio State.
Wow. I think that Ohio State and even their second and third tier guys are going to get an opportunity to shine. It won't shock me if Ohio State puts up a 70 burger.
Wow.
I
Bruce
think
versus Jensen this week.
I think they want to let him know. I think they want to let him know. I think the Buckeyes just absolutely offensively explode.
Always a lot of fun. Huge thanks to Jensen Lewis. Make sure to go follow him on social media at JLew50. Make sure to go stop in store at Northeast Factory Direct and ask for that big play bonus, guys. You're going to be glad that you did. Jensen, huge thanks for joining us. Looking forward to golfing with you, brother, on Saturday, August 31st at Little Mountain Country Club at the Big Play Golf Outing. That'll be a lot of fun. And we'll talk to you next week.
Can't wait to see you guys this weekend, and we'll talk to you Monday as well. Thanks.
For sure. More of the Big Play Cleveland Show right after this.
Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show. We're going to get into our fill in the blank brought to you by our friends at Affinity Whole Health. And actually, Chris, you've got an update from Affinity, don't you?
I sure do. So we did our blood work a couple of weeks ago. Last week, I had a chance, did a teledoc call with my doctor there at Affinity Whole Health, and it was a half an hour long. When's the last time you talked to a doctor for a half an hour? Talked about all the results, everything that I've gotten back, and they put me on a program, so we'll have an update next week on how that's going, as I'll get my box in the mail, and I'll be able to roll with that. So Affinity Whole Health offers personalized treatment plans to help people feel better. Whether you are struggling with weight loss, low energy, muscle loss, poor sleep, they can help with all of it. Affinity Whole Health provides expert guidance and support to help you safely reach your health goals. And really, they have Ohio covered with locations up here in Cleveland, also down there by me, down in Columbus. So don't wait any longer. Click on the link on our show clips to set up a free consultation, and you can check them out at their website, affinityWholeHealth.com.
Good stuff, Chris. I think a lot of people appreciate how thorough they are, so that's nice to hear.
For sure.
We're going to get into our fill in the blank here, guys. Obviously, next week, week 1, we'll be talking Browns matchup with the Cowboys. That'll be next week. But today, let's make some predictions about the entire season. The Browns will win blank games this season.
Well, what did we have last year? 11 wins?
11-6 last
11-6 last year. I'm going to go one extra. I'm going to say 12. I put it out on Twitter to the folks this week. There was a lot of negativity out there, I'll be honest with you. Everything predicated on what Deshaun Watson is going to do. So I think you're going to see a divide. It's either going to be real low or it's going to be 11 plus, I think, for this team. And it's all going to be predicated on Deshaun Watson. A lot of people are going low on Twitter. I'm taking the positive right now. I'm taking the optimistic view.
For sure. And I think they got 11 last year because we were just riding the highs of Flacco fever and the crazy run that they went on in the second half of the season this year. I'm going to go 10-7 as my Browns record prediction. I'll take a game away. I agree wholeheartedly with what Bruce said, that this division is brutal, and the Browns are going to have to take care of business early on in this season because they don't catch a divisional game until like week 7 or week 8. So you got to beat Dallas. You got to win some of these winnable games early, so that way you've got a little bit of a cushion in the AFC North when those games begin. I'll go 10-7 for the Browns this year, guys.
All right. Deshaun Watson, he threw for 7 touchdowns last year. He will throw for blank touchdowns this season.
Hopefully more than 7.
Yeah.
We're in a world of hurt if it's only 7. Obviously, that was the shoulder injury, and then he went away, and then he came back, and then injured it the rest of the way. So everything this year, and I don't have an exact number for you guys. I truly don't. Everything for this Browns season rides on Deshaun Watson returning to form. And what that form looks like, I'm not sure. I don't know we'll ever see the player that we saw that was an MVP candidate with the Houston Texans. It's been too far removed. But if he can be a serviceable franchise quarterback for this team, a Dak Prescott level quarterback, the Browns will be okay. They need him to be, because today we got word Nick Chubb is going to be out for the Browns until at least October. Yeah. So the Browns are going to be without Chubb for a bit. Watson needs to be ready to go, and it is going to have to be early on when they don't have Nick Chubb.
You talk about returning to form. Back in 2020, he had 33 passing touchdowns. He set a record there for the Houston Texans. I mean, I don't anticipate anything like that, even if he is at full form this year. But I would like to see him go out, throw 20 touchdowns, have himself a season, be healthy, be the guy that we're paying. We're paying to be the franchise quarterback, to be the leader of this team. This is the year. We're sick of waiting. We're sick of the rust. This is the year that Deshaun Watson's got to get it done for the Browns.
I mean, Baker Mayfield's best year in Cleveland, he threw 26 touchdowns in that awesome year that he had, COVID pandemic, beat the Steelers. They're in the playoffs. The year that the Browns got rid of him, he still threw 17 touchdowns. Deshaun Watson and this passing offense needs to be night and day improved from what it was last year, and that's kind of bottom line for this Browns team.
And I think the key, like you said, Chris, is staying healthy, because we're going to need some longevity out of him. He only played 6 games last season. Deshaun Watson will play blank games this season, you think?
I don't think this, but I'm hoping it, and that's 17. I'm hoping, or maybe 15, because the last 2 don't matter. How about that for Deshaun Watson? But I think we all anticipate at some point he's going to be nicked up. It's a long season, 17 games. So I expect to see Jameis Winston in there at some point for us. I'm hoping That's kind of in a fill-out duty. It's not because, Deshaun Watson's down again, but I'm looking for over 10 games, hopefully out of him, up to maybe 15 for Deshaun Watson this year, with the last 2 not mattering, Nick.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that the guy could come back and play week 1. And this general arm soreness that scared so many people there in the preseason.
He'll be ready week 1, right?
Hopefully we're able to put this all behind us. I want no conspiracies. I want nothing. I want him to come out of the gates week 1 against Dallas looking really good. I did see a weird stat somewhere online that said even like Rodgers at his peak, Brady at his peak, like those guys never really played all 16. Like they always find a way to miss 1 or 2 here in the length of a regular season.
Because they clinched the playoffs.
Yeah, so I'd look for Deshaun to play somewhere around 15, I think would be a success.
Yeah.
All right, you mentioned we're going to be without Chubb for a minute here to start the season. Jerome Ford led the team last year with 813 yards last year rushing. Blank will be the Browns' leading rusher this season, you think?
Once again, I'm going to will this one, Nick Chubb. I want to see him come back. I want to see him come back with a vengeance, and I want to see him run the ball a lot. I know the new offense under Ken Dorsey and what they're trying to do with Kevin Stefanski right now is going to pass the ball a whole lot more, and I expect that. But still, despite that, I think Nick Chubb is still going to get some carries in there, still going to be able to move the ball on the ground for the Browns, and I think he's going to be healthy. I'm hoping he's going to be healthy enough to do all that, because that would be huge for the Browns if we not only have a passing game under Deshaun Watson, but we also have Nick Chubb just tearing it up on the ground.
Yeah, Chris, I know you're trying to will that into existence. I feel like I've been kind of the opposite. I feel like I've been tampering people. Like anything that we get out of Nick Chubb this year is a win. On that night, on that dreary Thursday night in Pittsburgh when that injury happened, there were a lot of us wondering if he was ever going to lace up the cleats and play football for this organization ever again. I'm glad that 24 uniform will be coming out of the tunnel at some point this year. I really have expectations tampered on what Nick Chubb will be for the Browns this year. I hope he could come back early October and hit the ground running, but if he doesn't, they're going to need Jerome Ford. And I'll throw a sleeper in there. Don't sleep on Deontay Foreman. I know he's been banged up, and he got hurt again in the Browns preseason finale against Seattle. But Deontay Foreman could run the football, and I think a mixed backfield of Ford and Foreman could be a lot of fun.
I like that. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back with more Big Play Cleveland Show right after this. Welcome back to the Big Play Cleveland Show as we continue our fill in the blank talking everything Browns. Defensive Player of the Year, Myles Garrett, will have blank sacks this season. He had 14 last year.
And the year before that had 16, setting a Browns record. I'm going to go for 17. Why not? One per game. Let's go. It sounds nice. It looks nice on paper. Myles Garrett, once again, he's a guy who's motivated. I'm sure that what happened there in the playoffs last year with our loss to the Texans and just really having a collapse wears a lot on him, especially since he was Defensive Player of the Year. You follow that up, you don't have any hardware. This year, he's going to be gunning for that hardware as a team, and I think his individual effort, he's going to will himself to 16, 17 sacks. Big season for Myles Garrett.
Yeah. So I stayed up until 1 a.m. watching that Browns preseason finale.
Yeah.
And what I like that they did throughout this preseason, especially because we didn't get to see anybody, was Aditi and her player sideline interviews. And when she was interviewing Myles Garrett, she asked for his prediction for this season. How does he top coming off of a Defensive Player of the Year performance? And Myles Garrett said it best. He tops it with a Super Bowl championship and delivering a Super Bowl ring to
He didn't
Cleveland,
hesitate
Ohio.
on the sideline.
He didn't hesitate on that at all, and I think that's good. That's growth for Myles Garrett. I feel like, and I think this thought and take is shared by others, Browns fans that are out there. Myles spent so much time, energy, effort in the early games of the season, getting sacks, chasing his numbers so he could win Defensive Player of the Year. And then at the end of the season, he's got no gas left in the tank. Now flip that. Be that Defensive Player of the Year late in the season and into the playoffs. Make game-changing plays and help the Browns win a Super Bowl. That's how I'll judge Myles Garrett in 2024.
We're winding down the show. Just another reminder, our inaugural Big Play golf outing this weekend, August 31st.
Little Mountain.
Yeah.
My ideal golf weather is, guys?
Oh, give me 70 and sunny. I love that.
Yeah, can't
That's
dispute
good.
that. Nice little breeze going for you, Chris, out there in Painesville.
And it sounds like that's about going to be the conditions out there in
77
Painesville.
and
It's gonna be
mostly
gorgeous.
sunny so
Yeah.
far.
For
Yeah.
sure. Make sure you guys go show love to all the other shows on the Big Play Network. Huge thanks to tuning in, to everyone who tuned in to the Big Play Cleveland Show. We'll do it again next week.